Hi guys, I'm really excited today because I'm going to be sowing my tomato seeds. This is going to be the first episode in a series that I'm making on how to grow tomatoes from seed under grow lights. So if you are new to growing tomatoes from seed, make sure to subscribe and follow along, and hopefully you'll find the videos informative. This year I'm growing 19 varieties. It sounds like a lot, but I only put one plant of each variety in my garden. I'm going to put the list of varieties that I'm growing up on the screen for anybody that's interested. You can start your seeds in any container that you would like as long as it has a hole in the bottom for drainage. I like to start my seeds in these 72 cell count seed trays. Once the seedlings outgrow the cells, I pot them up into 8 or 9 ounce cups. Generally, you want to sow your seeds 6 to 8 weeks before the area that you live in is frost free. You can start your seeds sooner than that, but you might have to pot up your seedling a second time into a larger container. Your seed starting medium should be a dry one. Do not go buy a 50-pound bag of wet potting soil that's sitting on a skid outside of some garden center. If you do, you risk bringing bugs, funguses, and just stinky stagnant water into your home. Some of the bugs and funguses could be harmful to your little seedlings, so do not buy a big wet bag of potting soil for your indoor seedlings. I recommend getting a basic seed starting mix. These usually contain some peat moss or coconut coir, some vermiculite or perlite, and sometimes some slow release fertilizer. Not usually, but sometimes they do contain slow release fertilizer. Today, I'm going to be using Miracle-Gro potting mix. This is not a seed starting mix, but it does come in a dry bag and it contains dry potting mix. These bags are sold indoors at garden centers, home improvement centers, Walmart, places like that. This potting mix does contain some twigs and little sticks, things like that. You can just break those up or pick them out of the bag. Seed starting mix is definitely usually of a finer texture than a potting mix. When using dry potting mixes and seed starting mixes, you do need to pre-moisten them. These mixes are bone dry, contain a lot of peat moss, and peat moss really repels water until you get it nice and moist. So just get you a container, dump some water in there with your potting mix or seed starting mix, let the mix soak up the water, and wait 5 or 10 minutes, 20 minutes for the seed starting mix or potting mix to soak up all that moisture. You don't want this stuff sopping wet. You want to be able to squeeze it, and some water can come out, that's fine. You just don't want to squeeze it and see tons and tons of water pouring out like a little waterfall. If that's what you see when you squeeze it, you have just added too much water. All you have to do to remedy this is put some more dry potting mix in there and mix it up a little more. Now I'm going to start filling my seed cells. I'm just adding the potting mix, and as I add it, you want to pack it down with your fingers. Your thumb works really good for that. Add some more, pack it down. You don't want a bunch of air gaps in your little seed cells, so pack it down really good. And now it's time to plant the tomato seeds. To plant tomato seeds, I just make a small indentation in the soil with a pencil or my finger or a popsicle stick, whatever I have handy at the moment. If you are using newer seeds that have been saved within the past couple of years, or you've bought them within the past couple of years, I would recommend planting 2 seeds in each cell. Spread them apart a little bit so that they aren't growing right up on top of each other. Planting a couple of seeds in each cell will give you the best chance of not having an empty seed cell once your seedlings start to germinate. Later on, you can either cut or pluck out the weaker seedlings, or you can separate them, but we'll talk about that more in the next video. A lot of my seeds are older than a couple of years old, so I'm going to plant 3 or 4 in each cell. I'm just going to cover these up with a little bit of soil. Just make sure that they are completely covered. They don't have to be planted deep. I'm just using a spray bottle to moisten the top of the soil. Remember that we did pre-moisten the soil, so you really don't have to water it right now. Spraying just a little bit of water on top will settle the seeds and settle the soil. Before I put these under my grow lights, I'm going to put them into these little clear plastic bags. You could also use the plastic cover that comes with these seed trays. Cling wrap will work. This creates a nice, warm, moist environment that will help your seeds germinate. I'm not sealing these seeds in plastic. They are just very loosely wrapped If you cover them up, just cover them loosely. If you're using the plastic lid that comes with the seed cells, I would just set it on there a little crooked so that there's some fresh air getting in. Check on them every day or two to make sure they're lightly moistened. You don't want them sopping wet. If you see mold growing, just take the plastic off and don't worry about it. I just prefer to use it because it does create this warm, moist environment that speeds germination. It isn't necessary though. And once your seeds do start to germinate, which should take about a week or two, you do want to remove the plastic completely. You don't want the plastic on there. The grow light I use isn't marketed as a grow light. It's actually just a 4-foot long shop light suspended on a chain to a structure that I built to hold the shop light. There are 2 bulbs in my shop light. I use fluorescent T8 daylight bulbs. They make LED lights now for growing plants, and you could also buy a grow light that's just marketed as a grow light. That is completely fine. Keep the grow lights just above your seed tray or just above your plants. You don't want a huge gap there because once your plants start to grow, they'll get really skinny and flop over. They're not going to be as healthy as a nice stocky plant. What happens is the plants start reaching for the light, so they stretch and just grow really tall with a really skinny stem. If you're using plant markers, take into account that they are going to take up some space between the grow light and the surface of your soil. I'm using popsicle sticks, and I did break them in half so that they would be shorter. But really, I would prefer the grow light be a little closer to the soil than this. I would say 2 to 3 inches above the soil is adequate. And once your plants start to grow, the same thing, 2 to 3 inches above your plant. If you're a beginner gardener and all of this seems overwhelming, maybe you don't have the time to start all of these seeds and take care of them, that is completely understandable. There's absolutely nothing wrong with going to a garden center and buying plant starts. These days, many garden centers carry a nice large variety of tomatoes that you can plant. You'll find hybrids, indeterminate plants, determinate plants, and many of the common popular heirloom varieties like Brandywine and Cherokee Purple. I used nursery start tomato plants for probably 7 or 8 years before I ever started tomato seeds on my own. So if you feel like that's the way you want to go, then definitely just go for it. But if you think you're ready to jump in and start growing your tomatoes from seed, you can follow along with this series, and I'm going to show you how I do it. And that's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.